All right, I think we can start. So welcome, guys, to this workshop about stretching for freediving. So we are not going to properly stretch today, but we are going to talk about stretching and how to build a routine a bit specific for freediving and for stretching in general. I will share everything we are going to say. It's on a PowerPoint presentation. I didn't have a screen here, but Brandon will send it to you. Plus, you will receive as well like some kind of leaflet with a full body stretching routine with a picture for each position, which we are going to talk about during the workshop. But this way, if you need inspiration later to build your own routine and stretch, you will have it as a takeaway. So first thing, like you might have noticed a lot, if not all, freedivers stretch on a regular basis. To me, it's really an essential part of freediving training, the stretching. Few years ago, you still had a few top athletes that were like, oh, it's not that useful, and that were not stretching that much. The trend now is like really even these people, like they got into stretching at one point. And we are going to see why. Like there are like many benefits to stretch. So maybe we can do a little brainstorming together. Like what comes to mind in terms of benefits for stretching? We can increase the lung capacity. Okay, increase total lung capacity, definitely. Have a better flexibility of the diaphragm. What is it going to bring us as a benefit to be more flexible in the diaphragm? So yeah, in terms of depth adaptation then? Depth adaptation, residual volume. Why is it going to be a benefit to reduce the residual volume? How it is going to make us dive deeper? Sorry, I'm picking on you. It's not in a bad way. It's just so that we really see like the benefits and understand why. What is the residual volume? Anyone remembers?
You cannot get any air. That's like the rest of the air that's in there. You cannot.
Yeah, after a full exhale, that's the air we have left in our lungs. Okay, so roughly for someone who starts freediving, not trained, on average, the residual volume is 25% of our total lung capacity, right? So we are not going to do too much math, but just to really understand, as we go down, remember the pressure increase of 1 bar every 10 meters. Oh, let's be ambitious. We are going to go to 40 meters. So we have the pressure increasing, 1 bar at the surface, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now remember Boyle's law, pressure and volume are inversely proportional. So here, as the pressure is multiplied by 2, the volume is going to be divided by 2, right? And then divided by 3, divided by 4. Well, 1/4 is around 25%, right? So as I go down, roughly at 30 meters, my lung volume is going to be the same as my residual volume. What does that mean? I cannot exhale more air because we said when we are at residual volume, it's what's left after a full exhale. And remember, how do we do Frenzel in the end? We take a little bit of air from the lungs, use it to equalize. So that means if I cannot bring any more air up, I cannot equalize anymore. Yeah? So, but it's not like black and white. It's not like until 30 meters I equalize perfectly, and then past 30 meters I cannot equalize. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have noticed that already when we reach 20, 25, it starts getting a bit trickier to equalize. That's why. It's because we are getting closer to the residual volume. It's a bit harder to bring some air up. Okay? So, and some of you maybe have frenzeled a bit deeper than 30 meters in a natural way without feeling I'm reverse packing, or so maybe you reach your residual volume a little bit later. And again, it's a bit of a gray zone here, but roughly it becomes harder to equalize until we cannot anymore. Now let's imagine I do some stretching, we will see which kind, and I have my residual volume smaller. Let's imagine it's 20% instead of 25%. As I go a little bit deeper, here, 1/5 at 40 meters. Oh, I reach my residual volume this time at 40 meters. So I'm going to be able to equalize in a regular way with frenzel deeper, roughly to 40 meters. Again, not black and white. So indeed, we are going to be able to go deeper. But it's not only this, for me, the main benefit, because whichever your residual volume, at one point, you reach it. So that's why in wave 3, we learn the mouthfeel, the deep frenzel, to go past this residual volume and still being able to equalize. So if I have these techniques, I could say I don't need to reduce my residual volume. But again, because it's not black and white, if you reach your residual volume here at 40 meters, at 25 meters, it's still pretty easy to equalize. You're still far from this residual volume. So it's not only about equalizing deeper, it's about being able to equalize more easily. And this is going to make a difference on the whole beginning of your dive. Because, okay, it's not hard to equalize maybe between 0 and 5 meters, but it's going to be even easier all the way to 30 meters compared with before. So you start your dive also using a bit less focus and energy equalizing. Plus, for people who already use the mouthfeel, you're going to be able to charge it either deeper or, again, more easily. Because what is charging the mouthfeel? It's a big Valsalva. So I use some energy. So if I can, same by reducing my residual volume, charge the mouthfeel at the same depth, but in a more relaxed way, it's going to be a great benefit as well. So reducing the residual volume as a benefit by making our diaphragm more flexible is going to be equalized deeper, but also more easily. That's clear for everyone? Okay. So, but we said, sorry, I'm going to pick on you again. It's like we make the diaphragm more flexible. How does this reduce our residual volume? So, the diaphragm is a muscle here that has inverse U shape a bit here, that is separating the lungs from the rest of the organs in the abdomen. And to breathe, we contract the diaphragm and we have it going down as we contract it. So the lungs expand in volume because they are connected to the diaphragm. Because they expand in volume, remember Boyle's law, volume increase, pressure decrease. So we are going to have low pressure in our lungs, so some kind of vacuum, and the air is sucked into our lungs. That's how we breathe. Then we just relax the diaphragm and it comes back in its original place. When we stretch the diaphragm, we will see later, especially with Uyyana Bandha or empty lung stretching, we use other muscles to pull the diaphragm up more than its resting position. So little by little, the resting position is going to change. It's going to be higher. And because it's higher, that means the lung volume is smaller. So the air left in the lungs, the residual volume is smaller. Okay? Just to really understand a bit the mechanisms behind. Okay. We said depth adaptation, increasing the total lung capacity, reducing the residual volume. Very good benefits, very specific to freediving. Other benefits, not necessarily just for freediving, of stretching. Yes, preventing injuries. Of course, if you have more mobility, that means, like, especially in your joints, you're less likely to hurt yourself. If your muscles are more flexible, you can stretch them more in a natural way, you're less likely to torn them. Okay? Very good. Any other benefits you see? Like in other sports, you see people stretching after the effort, for example. Why is that? We are going to promote a bit recovery by stretching, by helping eliminating a bit like the toxin, side products, lactic acid that we create in freediving. We create more lactic acid than in most sports because we work without oxygen. And that's in return create lactic acid as a byproduct. How does it work, the promoting recovery? It's quite simple. You know, when your heart is a pump, yeah, but that can create a lot of pressure in the arteries. That's why the arteries, they are a bit elastic to be able to take the pressure. If you look at a gore movie, if you watch a gore movie, if someone has an artery cut, like it's pss, pss, pss. But in real life, that would be like this, because there is really a lot of pressure in the arteries. Okay, and then in the main arteries at least, and then they separate in smaller arteries that themselves separate in thinner arteries, and so on until you reach inside of the tissue, the capillaries, like tiny blood vessels that are all entangled in the tissue. But here, yeah, if you do a big scratch, you're not gonna have blood going out like crazy. It's just a little bit because as it was separating, we lost the pressure little by little, so that in our tissue there is no more pressure. Then those like I wish I had two colors. Let's imagine all of this is red. Those arteries, capillaries, they are going to be mixed with some venous capillaries, and the same process but reverse. They are going to join to form some bigger veins that are going to join with others, and so on until we get to the main veins that bring back the blood to the heart and the lungs. But since here we lost the pressure, and it's quite easy to visualize, for example, if you think of the legs, here I have no more pressure, and just the blood is coming back up slowly, being pushed by the blood before, and that was there before. That's why in our main veins, we even have some valves like this, so that the blood is pushed, then stays a bit, is pushed, stays a bit. And because of this, you can have, some lactic acid, some toxin that takes very long time to be eliminated. When I stretch, what do? I just compress all of this and I help it circulate. So, and then by bringing back all of this to the heart, the lungs, and other organs that are there to filter as well your blood and remove all of this, you're going to promote recovery. And it's really not something to neglect. Like if you do some dives in dynamic or in constant weight by fins where you feel a lot of lactic in the legs, a bit of stretching in the evening, and also even active recovery could be very nice. Okay, so we said prevent injury, promote recovery. We said we increase flexibility, then we were specific about the diaphragm, but we don't stretch only the diaphragm. Like if you do a full body stretching, you gain flexibility and mobility everywhere. Yes, of course, if you have better range of movement and better flexibility, you are going to be more fluid, you're going to have a much better technique. And for all discipline is going to be important, for no fins especially, but flexibility, for example, of the ankles is important, both for by fins, for the free fall without fins. So flexibility in general is going to help you have a good technique. It's going to help you also be a bit more efficient in your effort. You know, for example, someone who is running, ideally you want to direct all the energy just forward and a bit upward, downward, but like in this direction. But we have like little movements in our muscles on the side that we don't feel, we compensate them constantly. Studies show that the more flexible you are, the less you have those little parasitic movements on the side, so the more efficient you are. So how to quantify it exactly on a dive, it didn't go that far, but it's still definitely a benefit. Okay? And you will, I don't know if you already stretch regularly, but if you don't and you start, you will see you feel much better in your body as well. Last benefit, and for me it's almost like the biggest benefit, especially when you start. And it's connected a little bit with the technique, but also with relaxation. Any idea? There could be connected with the breath as well, but mostly I'm thinking about your body awareness. You develop a lot of what we call proprioception when you stretch. It's the ability to associate a feeling to a certain position, to a certain movement. And of course, if you have a very fine proprioception, you can see the benefit on the technique, like maybe you experienced it for yourself, or you saw some people, sometimes you are trying to make a movement, like, or your instructor tells you, oh, try to bend less the knees, really trying to keep your legs straight, and in the end, it's still quite bent. Good proprioceptions help you go faster on all these technical details, fixing them, because you have a very good awareness of your body and how to use it. And in terms of relaxation, same. If you don't have a good body awareness, if I tell you, okay, can you relax your shoulders? Maybe you're not sure, so you're going to shrug them a little bit, you know. If you have already a good body awareness, first you know if they are relaxed or not, and then if they are not, you can do it without having to do anything, but relax them, you know. So in terms of relaxation, having a good body awareness before and during the dive is going to be a huge benefit, and for me, this body awareness, is the main benefits that you get right away when you start stretching. Okay? So that's a lot of benefits, so I really hope it's convincing you a little bit to stretch on a regular basis if you don't do it yet. Now, I'd like to go just through a few general principles to be able to stretch a little bit properly, to really get the benefits that you want to get. For example, all studies show that if you want to gain benefit on the long term, every position needs to be held at least 25-30 seconds. If you do a routine where you hold the position like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, it's better than nothing, for sure. You are going to gain a bit of long-term flexibility, but way less. This is going to be more adapted to warming up, for example. By the way, long static stretch, like of 30 seconds or plus, are not very good for warm-up. You never see, for example, a sprinter before going, like staying like this for 30 seconds. Usually they do things a bit more dynamic because our muscle fibers, they are elastic. And when you stretch them, it's a bit like a spring, you know. You use up a bit the elasticity and it takes a bit of time before regaining it. So stretching, like do a long stretching session right before an effort is not going to be the best. It could actually decrease a little bit your performance. So when to stretch as well is another of the general principle. I would suggest not just before the effort, if it's a long stretch that is designed to gain flexibility, and not right after either. Right after, your muscles are warmed. You know, when you do an effort, you sometimes feel pain the next day in your, for example, if you go for a run, the next day you feel pain. What do you think is that? And that's a myth. Very common, but definitely not the lactic acid. The lactic acid, you feel it during the effort. That's what makes your leg feel heavy and maybe even painful at one point.
So it's the basically broken muscle fibers.
Yes, we got some micro lesions in our muscle fibers that trigger an anti-inflammatory reaction and a bit of swelling. That's why sometimes you look pumped up after as well. But that's what causes the pain as well. So if you are stretching to remove this pain, it's not really going to work. But it can help a bit for the swelling, but if you stretch right after the effort when you're still very warm, maybe you're going to just make them worse without even feeling it because you're warm. So I would wait a bit to really cool down before doing a stretching session. Now, the principle, just like for any other kind of training, it's all about regularity and consistency. So at one point, you need just to do it regularly. Better to do like 3-4 small stretching sessions per week of 20-30 minutes than one big one of 1 hour and a half every week, for example. Ideally, you can even stretch a bit every day. The compensation time to recover from stretching is a few hours. It's not like, for example, when you go to the gym and sometimes you need 2 or 3 days before your muscle really recover if you want to get the benefits. Here you can stretch very regularly. You're not going to overtrain in stretching. Or you would need to do it like several times a day with short intervals. Okay? So now, since you need to do it regularly, it's a little bit when we can. We all have a life besides freediving and other trainings to do as well. But yeah, so me, for example, I like to do it at 10 or 11 p.m. Because that's usually when I finally have time. And same, if you want to do it regularly, you need to make it a minimum enjoyable. Because if it's a pain in the ass to do it, we are not robots, you know. At one point, you're going to get bored or tired of it or lose the motivation. So find whatever works for you. If you like to do yoga with a yoga teacher and that appeals to you, go for it. It's great stretching in general as well. If you are more into like stretching by yourself, I like to stretch by myself. I put a movie. And then I stretch. Well, usually after 5 minutes, I'm more focused on my stretching than on the movie. So I don't really remember the movie, which is fine. But it gets me going, you know? And because, again, the idea, more than imagining to do the perfect stretching session all the time, is to do an actual session, even if it's not absolutely perfect, you know? But on a regular basis. Now, if you do perfect session on a regular basis, it's even better. But again, we are human, so make it easy on yourself. Same, when you build a routine, try to make it a little bit convenient. If in between each position, one you are lying on the ground, the next one you're standing, and then you're sitting, and then standing again, and then lying on the ground again, like all the transition, they actually take almost as much time as the routine in itself, you know. So try to group a little bit the positions together. It's impossible to do a perfect flow, but you will have some inspiration in the routine Brandon is going to send to you. And also maybe proceed, I don't know, from head to toe or from toe to head, just so that you don't forget any important part. And we are still freedivers, so usually we spend a little bit of time on the rib cage as well, which is going to be quite useful. Now, we talked a little bit about developing the proprioception, the body awareness. So it's going to be nice at one point if you focus a little bit on what you're doing and on what you feel. And a very interesting exercise that will help you as well if you do mental preparation, because again, it's a mind gym, is when you take a position, I like regularly to see how I am, close my eyes, and imagine I'm seeing myself from outside, like exactly which shape and the position. And then, of course, at one point I open my eyes and I check a bit it's corresponding, but that helps as well associating the feeling with the position a bit faster to develop the body awareness. And you work on your visualization skills, so it's going to be useful because you're going to get better at it for your other visualizations in mental preparation. Another thing as well is when you want to increase a little bit a position, always do it on an exhale. When you exhale, it sends signals to your brain to relax, so it helps getting into a deeper position without having to push, or because remember, it's not about intensity, it's about regularity. I never really push my stretching. It's just I use a little bit my body weight, and again, I keep it enjoyable. But over time, I became fairly flexible, let's say. So yeah, like full body stretching, I would recommend, honestly, at least if you can do like 3-4 times a week, you are going to develop some good flexibility very quickly. In a couple of months already, you will feel a huge difference, both in body awareness, but also just in the amplitude or the depth of the stretch you can get compared with when you started. But then again, it depends on your schedule and other things. But this one, from the benefits we talked about, is going to get you the better flexibility and mobility for the technique, also the proprioception and body awareness, so it's going to get you better technique. That's what promotes recovery. That's what prevents injuries as well. And depending on the stretches you put, it can also increase your total lung capacity. For this, I use, maybe you've seen it, it's becoming quite popular, you know those bridges? I'm sorry, I couldn't bring one here, but those bridges where you lie down on the back here, what is it going to be useful for? Well, besides, like, since I started this, no more back pain at all, like, ever. But in addition, it's going to help, like, getting the intercostals, like, between the ribs in the back more flexible. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to remove the shot to show this.
Gotcha.
Oh, no. Destroy anything.
Sure, yeah. There we go.
So, because when we take a full breath, we always think about this part because that's what we see when we actually do it. But if you look from the side, maybe I'm going to do it 2 times just so that you can see properly. But where do really the increase of volume takes place? You can see that mostly here, you know, that's so the flexibility of the ribs here in the back and the top of the back is going to be quite important to take a full breath. And if you look from here, so look here and here. You can see here how, and so with this bridge, actually, you can increase your total lung capacity like substantially. And for me, I was very flexible from everywhere but in a bridge position. So when I started, actually even 1 minute on it was like torture for me. But then I have a lot of students, they try it for the first time and they're like, oh, it's so comfortable. But so don't worry, it's not painful for everyone. Yeah.
One question, like the bridge stretches the back, the whole back. For the front, there's only the bottom. Is there anything else you can stretch?
Yeah, we are going to see when how else to increase your total lung capacity. Yeah.
Other exercises?
Yes.
Can you show me?
Yeah, it's part of it, don't worry. So, yeah, this as a regular stretch without using any breath work, you're going to be able also to increase your total lung capacity. So, yeah, just be careful when you use the bridge, careful a bit not to injure your neck. So usually me, I put a little cushion or even a yoga cube so that I have a bit of support in the neck, because anyway that's more this part that I want to stretch. And then you just lie down and breathe, and you do nothing. After, some people, they add some exercise where they take big breaths and even some packing on top to increase the effects. But yeah, I just spend 15 minutes every day on it, and I really felt a difference on it. Yeah, but I started with 1 minute because it was really too painful for me. But I got introduced to it by Andrea Zuccari from Freediving World in Sharm el Sheikh, and him and his wife Alice, who is a yoga teacher, they developed this a lot, and now they build some, and he was spending like 1 hour on it doing some breath work, but with this in a few months he gained more than 1 liter of lung capacity. But I believe like with just stretching on a regular basis on it, just breathing, you already increase your lung capacity substantially as well. And I started 1 minute per day, and then after a few days I increased to 2 minutes, and then until I was comfortable spending 10-15 minutes on it, because for me it was really, really painful at the beginning, but it's how I was built, probably. But it can help a little bit, but it's gonna make more like a deep tissue massage than really stretch. Or you will need to really spend like a certain amount of time on just one part, and then roll it a little bit and spend. And yeah, I'm not sure how it would work. But yeah, and those bridges you can find now some even on internet, and some like very light that you can travel with. So I know that in most places I go, I always bring the bridge with me. Yeah. So that's one of the things in regular stretching. And then there is a stretch that I like a lot, is using a bottle. Like me, I use a Axe deodorant. I find it the perfect size. And the idea is to put it on the ground. You can roll it in a t-shirt so that it's a little bit more comfy. And then you just lie down on top of it. Maybe actually I can demonstrate. It's not gonna burst. This is a good size too. And it's quite simple. Yeah. So this, because we usually have the sternum very hard here. It's cartilage, but if you, with a bit of time now, you can hear it even crack, and now it became very flexible, and this, I achieved it just by spending a bit of time on a regular basis, like this. So at the beginning you can use a little bit your hands for support, but ideally after you can do like this. So you put it under the sternum, and same, you just relax and breathe. So the first few times, maybe don't go for 10 minutes right away, a few minutes. It's going to be a bit sore maybe the same day and the next day, but pretty quickly you get used to it. Now sometimes if I do it when I'm tired, I fall asleep on it. So and just relax, breathe, and as it becomes easier, remove a little bit of support until you don't need any support, and really it's going to make a big difference here. Mostly what I felt, it made my contractions way more comfortable, because I usually take my contractions in the chest like this, and of course if these parts can move like with a lot of amplitude like this, it's quite comfy. Yeah? Oh, you have seen nothing yet. Trust me. Don't throw up on the next one. So these are like for what I would call regular full body stretching, even if we have some little piece of equipment after, but we are breathing normally, and then after that, but we have the full lung stretching that is taught in many agencies, and in general that is designed to help increase total lung capacity. It's definitely working. Like some freedivers did this with some additional stretching. So they were taking full breaths and then stretching on top of it, and they increased their lung capacity. But it's quite, it takes some time, and I feel there are some ways to increase it in an easier way and while combining it with other exercises. But first with the bridge you can already increase it a bit, but now when you think about it, let's imagine you do a CO2 table. You do like 7, 8 breath hold, depending on your level, 30 seconds to 3 or 4 minutes each breath hold. If you take a full breath and you just add a little bit of packing, just so that you feel a little additional stretch, then you are actually stretching your rib cage quite strongly for 7 or 8 times, 30 seconds to 4 minutes. So probably way more than if you were taking like 15 minutes or 10 minutes to do a full body stretching session. Now, me, I prefer to do it like this because, again, we have limited time, and I feel I get more benefits from my full body stretching. Adding like a few hundred milliliters of air to my lungs compared to the benefit, all the other benefits, I feel it's not necessarily my priority, or at least it's used not to be. Now I'm at a stage where I think my residual volume, I cannot really touch it anymore, or like the amount of time invested in it compared with the benefit, the marginal benefit wouldn't be really worth it. So I'm addressing a bit my total lung capacity, but I think at the stage you are at, full body stretching and empty lung stretching are going to bring you so much more benefit on the short and mid term as well. So just still, if you want to practice full lung stretching, just be careful, it can make you quite dizzy. Me also, another reason I don't practice it is I usually black out if I try. If you are a bit sensitive to blood pressure change, yeah, it can really make you very dizzy. So that's why when we practice it on the ground, not standing, for example, because this way if you are too dizzy or lose consciousness, there are not many consequences. And then you have like usually 4 positions that are traditionally taught. The trick is to inhale and take a full breath before you take the position, because if you take the position before, you cannot actually take a full breath. So I'm just going to demonstrate very quickly the 4 positions. They are like very classic in freediving. So first one, well, I'm not really going to take a big breath. And this, and you're going to feel really like an additional stretch compared with just the full breath. Then you're going to have this one, bringing the chest in the front as well, which is going to be quite efficient. Then what we call sometimes also the half moon, so that can be either here or here, depending on your flexibility. You're definitely going to stretch a lot this part, and of course the other side. And then finally, a little bit the twist. So there are different ways to do it, but already just doing this, you're going to feel a lot of stretch. This one, if you're a bit sensitive, is particularly tricky, so take it easy. You can, on a full breath, it's very easy to feel dizzy. But if you feel dizzy, you just take support and release the breath, and then you feel normal right away. So it was just to demonstrate to you a little bit the position if you want to practice it. Because ideally, if you have time to do on a regular basis, full body stretching, empty lung stretching, and full lung stretching, it's fantastic. But then if you need to prioritize at the stage you are at, I would definitely go for the 2 others first. And that brings us to empty lung stretching to help reducing our residual volume. We explained a little bit how earlier. Now, empty lung stretching, as the name indicates it, we want to empty our lungs. The residual volume is still there. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention earlier, the residual volume, you can really reduce it a lot. It's not just marginal to equalize a bit deeper from 30 to 40 meters. Huh? I had my residual volume measured 2020, I think it was 11.5%. So that means, and that's what I feel when I'm in the water, I can translate fairly easily to 80 meters, for example. So you can really make a difference by working on your residual volume. So, principle, you exhale the air you have, and then we are going to use our intercostal and to pull up the diaphragm. So let's really imagine it gets in and up. And you need to create some kind of vacuum for this. So it's a little bit like when you have a contraction and hold it with the glottis. Huh? A bit like this, but on empty lungs. Little precaution, before you start inhaling again, after, you want to have your diaphragm down again, like in its original position again. Otherwise the vacuum is so strong, you might actually irritate or even hurt a bit your throat, and if you really push a bit too much, your lungs. So empty lung stretching puts stress on the lungs. I wouldn't do a full empty lung stretching session before going for an open water session, because you put already stress on your lungs before you even go diving. I would keep it maybe for later in the day. And never push it. You can really, I've seen some people squeezing on dry, like overdoing empty lung stretching. 4, 5, 6 repetitions maximum is enough. Just take the time to be really relaxed and to do some relaxation breathing before each repetition, so that you can hold it a little bit longer comfortably. Don't wait to have contraction to put back your diaphragm and breathe again. Huh? It needs to stay relatively comfortable. Okay? So, what we are going to do is I'm going to demonstrate like the very basic one, regular one, and then we will see there are many variations that you can add to it to work a little bit differently on it. Sorry, I'm not trying to tease you, but last thing as well, but as it's a bit violent in a way on your diaphragm and on your lungs, you might want to warm up a little bit. So what can we do to warm up? Either you can start with 1 or 2 repetitions where you don't exhale fully, so that it's a bit softer. Or also you could do what the yogi, they call, I think, the fire breathing a bit, you know, when you push the diaphragm out as you exhale. I'm sick, so I'm not going to do it, it's going to be a mess. But if you try it, you really feel right away your diaphragm being solicited, so it's going to help warming it. Then once you are warmed up, and then I put back the diaphragm down before I breathe again. Okay? Mine is a bit impressive because my ribs are going out. It's also genetics, so don't feel bad about yours. Okay, and I'm a bit skinny at the moment, so definitely it's... so that's the classical one that I would recommend. First to practice just this one, you're going to get a lot of benefits for a while. Same if you want good results, I would say like 3-4 times a week. 5-6 repetitions is already a very good rhythm. So yeah, a session is going to take maybe like 15-20 minutes. It's not that long. You can squeeze it here or there, or after your full body stretching, for example, or before. That can be useful. Now there are little, once you've practiced the very basic one, you can also practice it standing with your hands on your knees. It's going to pull the diaphragm a little bit differently. So it's a little variation that you can try. And same, you can divide your practice, one session one session the other, or a bit of both in each session. It can be interesting to do a mix. Now some variation that you can add. First, some kind of intermediate variation, like after you've practiced the regular one, you can massage a little bit the tissues here, like to make it even more flexible and get more amplitude. You can also play a little bit with the flexibility of your ribs in compression. And one that Alexei likes a lot is creating a bit of vibration by tapping on your chest as well, a bit like some kind of deep massage tissue. So let me show you. I'm going to show you the 3 variations. 1, 2, 3. So first one, like the 3 in a row. Okay? All right. Now a little bit more advanced. So same, it's all progressive and successive, you know. I would practice first the regular one for a while. When you feel okay, now it's good, I would introduce the variations, and then once you've practiced this a little bit more, I would introduce those additional variations because they can put a bit of stress on your diaphragm and on your lungs. Remember the full body stretching posture? But we are going to do the same, but this time while pulling up the diaphragm. And when you try it, you will feel like it's definitely stretching the diaphragm a little bit differently in different directions, because our muscle fibers, they are not all perfectly parallel, you know, they are like a bit intricated together. So stretching a little bit in different direction helps stretching the whole thing. So those positions, it's going to look like this. Okay? After, you also have the one where you move the abs and stuff. I don't know how to do that, so I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I cannot do it, I'm sorry. But I'm sure we can find, like Maria can show you tonight when she's back, no problem. Now, here we are stretching, we set the diaphragm. But there is another muscle that we don't stretch much, and that is quite important. It's the psoas. The psoas is the muscle like below here. If you want to feel it, you can lie down. Like this, and if you push a bit here, you will feel something a bit hard, like that does the triangle, because it's quite deep. But the top of your psoas is attached on each side to the bottom of your diaphragm a little bit. So the thing is, we spend a lot of time stretching the diaphragm and very little time stretching the psoas, and we use the psoas all the time when we walk. So what happens when you have something even very flexible attached to something rigid, the total is not as flexible as it could be. So stretching the psoas is going to be useful as well. In the stretching routine that Brandon is going to send you from me, you have some position that stretch the psoas, but just so that you know specifically which one. Yeah, this one, I think in yoga it's called maybe the reverse downward dog or something like this, but I'm not sure anymore. So this one, you're going to feel a little bit the psoas stretch. And there is another one, you know, when we stretch usually adductor and abductor like this, we stretch a little bit the psoas if you keep the body straight, but if you really want to go specifically for the psoas and reinforce the stretch, you grab your foot here. And then, well, maybe at the beginning you're going to feel, oh, it's stretching only my leg, but be confident as you gain flexibility, you will really feel the psoas and it will really stretch it. But it is stretching it even if you don't feel it. So that can be good to make sure you have one of these positions, if not both, incorporated in your own routine of stretching, so that you get the full benefits as well of the diaphragm stretching. Okay? So, now there are more and more people getting interested in stretching, so there are also a bit some, I don't know if I should say new age or like a new way of stretching. Maybe if one day you take Wave 4 course, it's
Yeah, just make it easy. Gotcha.
yeah, it's part of it as well. The exact name in English is complicated. It's proprioceptive neurofacilitating stretching, PNF. Yeah. Like you can also, because when we do long static stretching, we work more on the flexibility and a little bit less on the mobility. Mobility includes also a bit, is going to help you for coordination. Mobility is linked more to your joints and the range of movement, but also to the coordination. And if you want to couple a bit both, PNF is useful. You have different ways of doing it. One of it is basically to alternate really contracting the muscle and relaxing it while stretching. So you contract the antagonist. For example, here, if I'm stretching my hamstring, well, also my lower back in this case, but by contracting, relaxing, contracting for a few seconds, relaxing, you are going to develop flexibility even more and a bit of mobility through it as well. Now, if you ask me, do I do it? No. It would be optimal in a way, but it takes a lot of focus and energy, and I like my stretching routine to be chilled and enjoyable, and yeah, so I chose enjoyment over optimization. But yeah, then it's up to you. You can research it a little bit more if you want, but already I would say incorporate some full body stretching in your routine, some empty lung stretching as well, especially if you are really interested in depth, but not only having the diaphragm more flexible, just like having this part more flexible is going to make your contractions a little bit more enjoyable as well, or at least less unenjoyable, I think, or less annoying. So yeah, working on this, don't see it only, it's to take more air, or it's also a question of comfort, technique, fluidity. So that's why for me, for all of this, it's really, really essential to stretch. It makes you feel good as well, so there are like only benefits, and you see the results also in the water fairly quickly, so it's quite nice, you know, to be able to measure the progression quickly. So same for people who did a bit the mental preparation workshop. In stretching as well, you can put some indicators of progression to get the motivation going, and that can be like very simple. You choose a few positions that are your references, and you just, I don't know, mark either the angle or where you can reach on a wall or something, and then you see that, and this you're gonna see a progress quickly. So it's super motivating to keep you going, and after just the pleasure, it's gonna become a pleasure. Huh? It's like a lot of things. You start it. I don't know if we have some runners here. Maybe when you started running a long time ago, the first few sessions were hell, and then it becomes enjoyable. Even at one point, stretching is gonna get the same path. Huh? It's not super enjoyable if you're not flexible at the beginning, but after you feel good, so you're like, oh, okay. And then at one point, it's gonna become enjoyable during the stretch as well. Huh? And that's what you want to get as quick as possible, so that your sessions are enjoyable and you practice regularly, consistently, because that's what is gonna be the key to progress. Do you have any question about this stretching part?
Can you just repeat the different type of stretching?
Yeah, I would say we could separate it like in, usually traditionally we do full body stretching, full lungs, empty lungs. And then empty lungs are the one that is going to help you reduce your residual volume especially and make your contractions a bit more enjoyable. Full lungs, you're going to increase your total lung capacity. And full body stretching, you're going to get all the other benefits we talked about it, plus you can also increase your total lung capacity with some exercises that we saw, like the bridge. Now, to increase your total lung capacity, you can do also some breath hold with a little bit of packing. At one point, you will be able to take more air naturally. A good way as well to reinforce your breathing muscles is light jogging or light running, breathing only through the nose, because the airflow is reduced. You use your breathing muscle way more, and very, very quickly as well, after just a few sessions, you can feel a difference. You can also breathe through a pen or a straw. The effort you make is going to really make your breathing muscle stronger, more efficient. And there are even some studies that show that breathing through restricted airflow like this is going to make the membrane of your alveoli cells a little bit thicker and stronger. So that could be a good way as well. Yeah. You know, or like this, you have some devices now. I think there is a brand called AeroFit as well. It's expensive device. A straw is cheap, but you can get some data and feedback out of it, that kind of thing. But
Do you use it, the AeroFit?
no, but I had a whole period where I was breathing through a pen, really. Now I prefer to do nasal breathing, running, because I also love running. It's just at the time I didn't know it's someone doing a lot of static. I took some static coaching at one point, and it's one of the exercises I had to do. And yeah, it's relatively the same benefits, but since I love running, I can combine both. Again, also about enjoyment in a way, if you want to do it regularly. Any other question? All right, so I think we are done for this workshop. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So I
Go
was
for it.
thinking, like, as you progress with your stretching, then that's the only time you also progress with your breath hold and your depths and all of these things, or because like it comes hand in hand, right? Like you have, or
Yeah, but it depends. You can progress a lot on your stretching if you never go in the water. It's not gonna automatically make you progress in depth, but yeah, I think it's a very good complement to really progress in all aspects, because as we said, it's going to help you also on your equalization, reducing your residual volume. It's going to help you for the depth adaptation and feeling more comfortable at depth. After, you have also, it's not necessarily going to help you a lot on your breath hold, for example. maybe a little bit. Of course, if you have a bigger total lung capacity, for a same relaxation state, so you know a lot of other parameters, you're gonna get hypoxic later. But at the moment, what limits most of us on our breath hold is more our CO2 tolerance, and the stretching is not gonna help you with this. So this you need to work on it in a different way, either diving a lot, but also or doing static or tables or other things. But yeah, I would do also other things, and yeah, like incorporate different things. Now, after, if you have a limited time, you can also decide, okay, for the next couple of months, my main focus is going to be stretching, and I'm going to do a bit less breath hold works, and then the following months, it's going to be more about breath works and less about stretching. You don't lose all your flexibility just like this, especially if you are very consistent. I know that if I don't stretch at all for 1 month, it just takes me like 3-4 sessions to be back to completely normal, because I've been doing it consistently for a long time. Yeah. Okay, all good. So I think we're just on time. You now have possibility to have other workshops. Let me check for you. Here is I'm going down first floor for mouse feel. And then I think we have no-fin masterclass with static masterclass with Brandon here, no-fin masterclass with Maria in the rooftop area, and mouse feel masterclass with me in the first floor.